This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
It's time for Emergence News on Plains FM 96.9, citizen-made radio.
Kia ora and welcome. Namaste. This is Emergence News coming from the studios of Plains FM 96.9 in Christchurch, South Island of New Zealand, Aotearoa. Welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to catch up with John. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Nigel.
Coffee working so far?
Yes, no, I've had a coffee on the way in. So,
any other challenges that you've met along the way?
Everything appears to be fine at this stage.
Functioning as it should.
But one coffee has got to the point where it's not enough.
That's a worry.
Yeah, it is a worry. Yeah. My addiction is growing and my discipline is lessening.
Have a donut. And Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Hi.
And I heard you talking to our regular listener just before we came on air that you're overwhelmed with work again.
Oh, yes. I wasn't looking for it, but
I'm never looking for work, Peter.
That's that Ray 4 again, isn't it? He walks into a supermarket and without any effort at all, he's chatting away to everybody. And you've had your nose in the Alice Bailey volume, Esoteric Psychology.
Yes, they're absolutely fascinating, actually. And, I've come up with the objective of all our why we're here. So within about 3 sentences, so it's quite amazing. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, look, if you've joined us for the first time on this program, inside the next 25 minutes, you can look forward to the big question being answered by Peter. Why are we here? What is life? Sounds
correct.
Good. Yeah, sounds good.
And I've got some nuts and bolts on how to live that life.
Woo.
Timing is everything, Peter.
Yeah, well, we were talking last time on this program about the timing of Maitreya's emergence, obstacles or considerations involved in his emergence, and of course the masters of wisdom, the spiritual hierarchy. So I thought I'd do something that John enjoys doing, and that's diving into definitions. And the definition of emergence is, well, this is one of the definitions, the process of becoming visible after being concealed. Why is Maitreya and the spiritual hierarchy, those that take care of our evolution, they take care of humanity, why are they concealed? Why are they hidden? Why do they work behind a veil?
I think it's a karmic process, isn't it, Peter? There's the energies that allow them to work openly with humanity ebb and flow over millennia, because humanity's been here for 18.5 million years on this planet. And the masters have been out of cycle, and I'm not sure that's the correct word, for 98,000 years,
Correct,
Peter?
yes, middle of the Atlantean times, yes, exactly.
So there's some cyclic process, karmic process, energetic process where they follow the ebb and flow of whatever it is that drives evolution in this cosmos. And they are now returning by karmic law and by appeal from humanity. 1945, there was a heartfelt appeal from humanity for help. So that has hastened Maitreya's return, that those masters return, an appeal from humanity and the state of humanity and the state of the planet. So they're coming early, Peter, is my understanding.
That's right, yes. I mean, they were scheduled to come in, but it could have been several hundred years hence.
Yeah.
But yes, certainly the appeal has been the main.
And the thing with that we have to, that is difficult for us humans to understand, is that relationship of time to us and the relationship of time to a master. A couple of 100 years to a master and the evolution of this planet, the time between shaves really, isn't it? It's like it's nothing.
That's right. Time for another coffee.
Time for another coffee. Is it? Oh, good.
You're both talking the same language. And Peter, Maitreya says, watch for my presence, seek out my face and words. So he is saying if you hear somebody or you hear of people talking about justice, talking about sharing planetary resources, talking about we are one, we are all brothers and sisters, if you're hurting, therefore I am hurting, then those are the words of Maitreya.
That's right. And you hear somebody like Jeffrey Sachs talking about addressing the European Council, and, he should be the president, in my viewpoint. I mean, so wise. So, it just amazes me that they elect people in America that are so low on the scale.
Inadequate.
Bordering on inadequate.
And Jeffrey Sachs, I've watched a couple of interviews with him where he's just sitting talking to someone and he pulls out dates and times of critical decisions that were made that brought us here today. And he can go back 20, 30 years and say, on this date and this year they did this and that caused this to happen. And he's able, the man's got an amazing memory.
Yes,
he's able to track decisions made by those in power that result in the chaos we're facing today.
Exactly, yeah.
Very interesting man. I'm really surprised he's still allowed in America. He is highly critical and apparently in an educated way of American foreign policy.
That's right.
Very much like Noam Chomsky has been for decades critiquing American foreign policy.
Making themselves unpopular by telling the truth.
And what's powerful about it is they're both American. It's not as though it's an outsider pointing the finger and going, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that.
No.
It's actually American academics saying, hey, hold on, we started this.
Yes.
We have a finger in this pie.
We have a finger in every pie, yeah, which is why they're burnt.
And speaking of the truth, I must say I came across an Alice Bailey quote, Peter, talking about the rays as we have recently. Different aspects of truth can be seen through the seven rays. Isn't that interesting? Different aspects of truth can be seen through the seven rays. Each ray sees things differently and has its own way of doing things. And she says each ray has a different opinion.
Yes, I know.
Isn't that interesting? So when we're talking about polar opposites, John, the polarisation that's on the planet at the moment, it kind of now, with that ebb and flow that you were talking about, a different energy starting to cosmic energy starting to come through with a different opinion and perhaps a different way of looking at truth, that helps explain what's happening on the planet at the moment. Much confusion, much instability.
And also, and I forget the number, Peter, but how many people do we have approaching or around the first initiation? And when you think we've got 8 billion souls on the planet, I can't remember, is it around 800,000 or is it around a million?
Yeah, 850, I think Ben was giving.
But it'd be more than that
now.
now.
Be more than that now. But so when you look at 8 billion people and you've got 1 million, let's say, 850, 900,000 people on that verge of the first initiation, no wonder there's confusion out there because we're all struggling to develop and use and understand the gear we're given.
That's right.
As part of evolution.
That's right. And it's only like one person in every 7,000 that's had some initiation status, even if it's a first degree.
Yeah. But there are a lot of people who were clamouring to incarnate at this time.
Yes, because the opportunity is there for them to take the first initiation.
Exactly. And of course, our consciousness needs to be lifted higher. Otherwise, we're going to continue to be influenced and enthralled, John, by the masters of materialism.
That push for materialism, that push for wealth, that push for me, I don't think in my life I've ever remember it being so strong.
So powerful.
It's like they are pushing everything at us to keep us enthralled, which for me is good news because it means they've pulled out all stops. They got all of the guns blazing because perhaps they know it's the start of the end.
That's right. They're going to run out of ammo.
They're going to run out of ammunition. Humanity, in large swathes of humanity, people are realising that this lifestyle is not working. I mean, that's not new.
No.
There's an underground swell of people going, hold on, I've been following your path that's been dictated to me for a long time now, and it's not achieving me the things I want. So there's a groundswell of that coming through, that actually no matter what you say, Mr. Corporate Monster, it's not working for me. So yeah, there is pushback, but that message at the moment around materialism and enthrallment and right-wing governments and that philosophy of the individual, that cult of the individual, that drum is banging louder than I've ever heard before. It's deafening.
On the last program, John, you brought up a subject which interested me, the forces of evil, the masters of materialism. And their weak point is the fact that is evolution. The fact that there is a planetary evolution and there is also us, humanity. Why is that the weak point for oligarchy?
Because humanity is on that cusp of spirit and matter, right? We exist on that horizon between spirit and matter. So the lords of materiality, they have a role in securing the matter aspect of the planet, but they've stepped out of their
area of responsibility.
Yeah, they've stepped out of their lane and have got quite excited by the fact that they've got humanity enthralled. So they are trying to slow down evolution, and that's just not going to happen.
No, the end is actually known from the beginning.
The end is known from the beginning.
Now, but how is that? How is oligarchy going to dismantle themselves?
Oligarchy have finally broken cover. They're finally standing loud and proud, and Elon Musk is a great example of that. He was interviewed recently and said the great weakness in Western civilization is empathy. Right? So if you have a community where empathy is not one of our values, then the emperor can do whatever they want because we don't care about someone else. Right? So they are up against it. They have broken cover. They are pushing really hard to keep us enslaved.
And of course, the Ray 7 energy that is going to dominate the age of Aquarius for the next 2,500 years is promoting unity and cooperation. But I'm not sure oligarchy know what those two words or those how that works.
Oligarchy are not going to walk away from the golden throne.
Not easily.
No, they're not. They don't have another way of doing things. That small group of humans who are, maybe we could say, initiates or disciples of the masters of materialism, but certainly that privileged few on this planet are not going to give that up. They're not going to go, oh, okay, look, we've had it our way for a while now. I think I will share my billions. You know, people like Bernie Sanders are already crunching the numbers. And if the 8 richest men in America just paid their share of tax, they could have a social welfare system. I mean, the money we're talking about is astronomical. And people like Elon Musk are thinking of going to another planet. They're not thinking of fixing this one. So, no, they're not going to let go. The system will have to be dismantled from underneath them. And I also hope that there are some criminal charges brought against some of this leadership, because when you understand that the fossil fuel industry have known since 1977, and we covered that research on a program some time ago, that fossil fuel burning damaged the planet and continued it anyway, there's crimes against humanity sitting there. And when you think what you have to do to gather massive amounts of wealth on this planet, there are crimes sitting there that I'm hoping will be addressed. So, yeah, they're not going to let it go. We're going to have to dismantle the system from underneath them, and they'll crumble.
And, of course, the emergence of the masters and the emergence of Maitreya is not something oligarchy or the masters of materialism are looking forward to at all.
No.
That's not welcome news to them.
Yeah, no, there's perch falling going to be happening here. They're on the perch at the moment. And as the forces of light rise, then, oligarchy, the disciples of the masters of materialism are going to tumble.
Listening to Emergence News, and we welcome your company. And we're crossing over to Peter now. And look, we've been talking a lot about evolution here, Peter. What is the objective, the big picture of the evolutionary experience?
Well, it's interesting that I've come across this in the psychology, esoteric psychology, and talk about three things: the synthesis of life, which is in the spirit world, you might say; the unity of consciousness, which is an aspect of the soul; and the integration of forms, which is our physicality. There always have been at one-ment, but the human consciousness has not known it. It is the realization of these three factors in their integration into the technique of living, which is for man the objective of his entire evolutionary experience. So I'll say those again: the synthesis of life, which is the spirit aspect; the unity of consciousness, which is soul; and the integration of forms. And that is the objective of our evolutionary experience.
Integration of forms. What are you talking about there?
Well, your body is made up of emotions and mental and physicality, isn't it? I mean, there are actually more aspects of it, but basically those are them. And so if we become an integrated person, we have all those things functioning harmoniously together. It is a matter of creating harmony in all our essences. And if we look at the seven rays, we've got seven aspects in our being. So we're only sort of aware of, say, three, like mental, emotional, physical. But there are seven aspects, just as there are seven centers in our brain, seven ventricles in our brain, which are replicated by the seven rays. Everything's in sevens. And the seven centers of the one about whom naught may be said are the stars of the Ursa Major, which is the Great Bear constellation. So those are his head centers, and from those the seven rays come. But we are a replication of that. We've got seven centers in our brain as well, and we're not even aware of that. We're not, it's only at soul level that we are able to be conscious of those various aspects of it.
So you're talking about the psychology of the future here, aren't you?
Yes. Well, the psychologists of the future are going to have a hard job. It's not going to be achieved in a 5-year apprenticeship or whatever.
Oh, damn.
Because
don't look at me like that, Peter.
There is so much to comprehend. And when they're dealing with a patient or a client or whatever they may call it, they're going to have to understand their ray structure. And that is going to require the use of the soul.
Yeah.
Because the intuition comes through from the soul.
Yeah.
And unless they've got an integrated intuition, they're not going to be able to help people. They're not going to know what ray they're on. They're going to be completely lost.
The children will probably have the answers.
Well, they will, because they're intuitive. They know things before they know them.
So mental health practitioners going forward into the new age will all be under 10 because they retain their innocence, right?
Yes.
But isn't it interesting, the word integration of the forms? Because if you've got integration, then we talk about dysfunction a lot in our society, don't we? And, like the area of work that you're involved in, John, we're talking about you're working with the dysfunction within our community and our society constantly. Every day there are issues coming up. Whereas if more and more humans have that integration, then we're going, whoops. Is that more of Peter's technology being kicked a touch?
You're right there, Peter. Can you get yourself up, mate?
I'm good. Yeah. All good now.
Peter's fallen off his chair.
Well, he
got really excited.
He did. He was disclosing some pretty head-turning information there.
Well, I was just looking at this piece here that I've written down, and this is the 7 rays are the sum total of divine consciousness of the universal mind. And if you can get your head around that, you're doing very well. But it's very simple. We try and complicate it.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to analyse what the hell does that mean. But look, the sum total of the divine consciousness of the universal mind, that is the 7 rays. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And if we can just accept that without sort of
questioning it too much.
Yeah, analysing it too much.
Yes.
Part of our brain will work that out.
Intuitively.
Yeah.
I'd like to try and explain what the purpose of humanity as well. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is talking to, maybe it's Maitreya through Sri Krishna. Anyway, the story goes, the description of humanity is as the charioteer with 3 horses at the front of the chariot, and 1 horse's mind, 1 horse's body, 1 horse's emotion. And the goal of the charioteer is to get all 3 horses and the chariot and the charioteer, who is the human consciousness, the human soul, all working in the same direction. So our initial step is not going off to be one of the suns in a solar system somewhere. Our initial step is to manage our vehicles.
Integrate everything.
Integrate our vehicles, which helps others integrate their vehicles, which helps us integrate the planetary life. So we are part of that. We're at that cusp, that horizon that I said before, where spirit and matter meet, and we are the vehicle for both. And what we have to do is turn matter into spirit, and that's enlightenment. So turning our physical bodies more and more into spirit, into spiritual, lighter forms of matter.
And I thought of a good example of that a while ago when you were talking about the planetary initiation. That was a podcast that you did a few months ago. And you were talking about the initiates taking the 4th initiation, and that their bodies look like another human body, but they're actually 3/4 light.
They're lighter, yeah. And Peter, we've talked about
spiritualization.
Yeah, we've talked about the healing waters.
Yes.
And Maitreya's charged healing waters all over the planet, and they are lighter.
Yes,
they are physically lighter than normal water. So that idea of bringing light in is that part of that evolutionary process.
So that Takloti water tablets,
tablets,
that's actually scientifically lighter than...
Physically lighter than normal water.
It's 9% lighter. They can actually weigh it and find that it's actually lighter. And I think, what the hell's wrong with this water?
Yeah. So, and also...
Or what's right with it?
And you can look at other spiritual practices like meditation, bringing in the light of the soul. Meditation, building that
the antakarana.
The antakarana, which is an energetic connection.
The rainbow bridge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's bringing in light. So there's a number of ways to do that. But the next program I will talk about Maitreya's ideas around how we can evolve ourselves and become more light.
Just a little bit here. The 7-ray beings, unlike man, are fully conscious and entirely aware of the purpose and the plan. They are ever in deep meditation and have reached the point where Through their advanced stage of development, they are impelled towards fulfillment. They are fully self-conscious and group conscious. They are the sum total of the universal mind. They are awake and active. Their goal, their purpose is such that it is idle for us to speculate about it, for the highest point of achievement for man is the lowest point for them. These 7 rays, breaths, and heavenly men have the task of wrestling with matter in order to subjugate it to divine purpose, and the goal, as far as one can sense it, is to subject the material forms to the play of the life aspect, thus producing those qualities which will carry the will of God to completion.